By sunrise, 6 black sport utility vehicles had surrounded my street, and every man standing beside them seemed to know my name. That was the first clear thought I had at 6:08 on a Thursday morning, before I knew who Vincent Moretti was, before I understood why a man in a charcoal coat stood beneath Mrs. Wilson's broken porch light with one hand pressed to an earpiece, watching the intersection as though the entire city might turn against us without warning. I was still wearing the navy scrubs I had put on almost 24 hours earlier. My shoes were soaked through. My hair had dried in uneven strands against my face. A faint stain marked the sleeve of my jacket from the stranger I had helped during the night, though I had not noticed it until Mrs. Wilson knocked on my door and demanded to know why professional security guards were standing outside her flower shop. I told her I did not know. That was the truth. At least, it was most of it. From my third-floor window, Maple Street looked like a scene borrowed from another life. The bakery on the corner had not opened. The neon sign above Carter's Pharmacy flickered red against the gray dawn. Rainwater traveled along the curb in silver ribbons, carrying brown leaves and a paper coffee cup toward the storm drain. Between those ordinary details sat 6 polished vehicles with dark windows reflecting the tired brick buildings around them. Men in tailored coats stood at both ends of the block. One waited near the bus stop. Another stood beside the laundromat. 2 watched the alley behind my building. They did not question the residents or block the sidewalks. They simply observed. Calm. Silent. Certain. Mrs. Wilson stood beside me in a faded green robe and house slippers, holding a wooden spoon as if it might become useful. "Hannah," she whispered, "what did you do?" I almost laughed, but nothing about that morning felt funny. "I helped someone." Her eyes moved toward the black handkerchief on my kitchen table. It had been left beside an empty glass of water before the stranger disappeared. The fabric was heavy, its edges stitched by hand, with a silver lion embroidered in one corner. It did not belong in my apartment. Nothing that expensive did. My kitchen table had one uneven leg supported by an old nursing textbook. A yellow stain spread across the ceiling above the sink where my landlord had promised to repair a leak 3 winters earlier. My refrigerator contained half a carton of eggs, a jar of mustard, and enough leftover soup for one meal if I ignored the date on the container. The handkerchief looked as though it had crossed into the wrong world. So had the man who owned it. 3 measured knocks sounded at my door. Mrs. Wilson caught my arm. The knocks came again. Not louder. Just patient. I stepped into the hallway and looked through the peephole. A tall man in his early 30s stood alone on the landing. Clean-cut. Dark wool coat. 2 other men waited near the stairs, far enough away to appear respectful and close enough to react if anything changed. I opened the door 4 inches and kept the security chain fastened. "Miss Brooks?" the man asked. His voice was quiet and professional. "Who are you?" "Ethan Shaw." "That does not answer my question." Something almost like approval moved across his face. "I work for Vincent Moretti." The name meant nothing to me then. I wish I could say I recognized it, that some instinct warned me I had invited one of the most feared men on the East Coast into my tiny apartment. But I was a nurse, not an investigator. I knew medication schedules, insurance forms, and how to remain calm when a family was falling apart in front of me. I did not know the names whispered behind private doors. "I do not know Vincent Moretti," I said. Ethan glanced at the handkerchief on my table. "You met him last night." Mrs. Wilson inhaled behind me. "The man from the alley?" I asked. Ethan nodded. "Is he alive?" The question escaped before I could consider anything else. Not the vehicles. Not the guards. Not the fact that a stranger had vanished from my apartment before dawn. I needed to know whether what I had done had been enough. Ethan's expression softened slightly. "He is alive because of you." My shoulders dropped. I had not realized how tightly I had been holding myself together. "Then why is your entire team outside my building?" "The people searching for him may have seen you. Mr. Moretti does not yet know what they recorded or how much they learned. Until he does, No one unfamiliar enters Maple Street without our knowledge. I looked toward the stairwell window. Another guard stood outside Mrs. Wilson's shop. You are protecting my apartment? The entire street. Why? Ethan studied me as if the answer should have been obvious. Because you live here. Some sentences sound romantic only after the danger has passed. At the time, his words felt like a lock turning. I removed the chain and opened the door wider. People on this block have jobs. Children have school. Mrs. Wilson opens her shop at 7. You cannot frighten an entire neighborhood because I helped one man. We were instructed not to interfere with anyone's routine. 2 of your vehicles are blocking a fire hydrant. Ethan looked toward the window and touched his earpiece. Move vehicles 3 and 4 10 feet east. 2 engines started immediately. The vehicles rolled forward and stopped in perfect alignment. Ethan had not raised his voice. He had barely moved. Yet the street changed around him. Who is Vincent Moretti? I asked. The hallway became still. Ethan looked at the handkerchief again. He is a man who has survived by trusting very few people. He trusted me. No, Ethan said quietly. You gave him no choice. I should have been offended. Instead, I remembered Vincent in my kitchen, pale beneath the hard control in his face, one hand gripping the counter while I ordered him to sit down. I remembered his warning. No hospital. They will be waiting. When can I speak to him? Ethan's attention shifted toward the street. A 7th vehicle turned onto Maple and stopped in front of my building. The rear door opened. A polished black shoe touched the wet pavement. Vincent stepped into the morning wearing a dark suit, his posture steady and his expression unreadable, as though the exhausted stranger from my kitchen had never existed. Only the careful way he protected his right side revealed that the night had taken anything from him. Every guard on the street straightened. Vincent looked up toward my window and found me immediately. Across 3 floors, through rain-streaked glass, his eyes held mine. I had not rescued an ordinary stranger. I had brought a storm into my home, and by morning, it had learned my address. Vincent crossed the street without an umbrella. The men stationed along Maple Street did not greet him. They simply adjusted their posture as he passed. I watched from the landing while he entered my building, climbed 3 flights of stairs, and stopped outside my open door. Up close, he looked composed, but not untouched. Fatigue remained beneath his eyes, and his movements were precise in the way people move when they are refusing to acknowledge discomfort. Ethan stepped aside. Vincent looked first at Mrs. Wilson and then at me. Miss Brooks, he said. His voice was calm and unmistakably familiar. You left without saying anything, I replied. Mrs. Wilson turned toward me so quickly that her wooden spoon nearly struck the wall. Vincent did not appear offended. I did not want my presence to place you in greater danger. So you surrounded my entire street with black vehicles? Yes. He answered as though the reasoning were obvious. You understand how those 2 actions contradict each other. Ethan suddenly became interested in the peeling paint beside the railing. Vincent kept his eyes on me. The people searching for me knew this area. Until I confirm what they saw, security is necessary. Protection usually begins with asking the person being protected. His jaw tightened, but he did not raise his voice. Last night, asking permission was not a luxury I had. Last night, you could barely stand. Silence settled between us. Mrs. Wilson placed her spoon on my counter with exaggerated care. I am going downstairs to open the shop. If anyone in a black coat frightens my customers, I will send Mr. Moretti a bill for lost business. Vincent gave her a solemn nod. That is fair. She narrowed her eyes, apparently disappointed that he had not argued, and walked toward the stairs. When she was gone, Vincent stepped inside my apartment. His gaze stopped on the black handkerchief. I should have taken that with me. You were in a hurry. I wanted to leave before you woke. That does not make it better. For the first time, the control in his face shifted. Vincent Moretti, A man who could station guards across an entire neighborhood before sunrise did not seem to know what to do with a disappointed nurse. "You saved my life," he said. "I did what anyone with medical training should have done. Most people would have walked away. Most people did not find you." The night before returned to me with the clarity of a memory that had not yet become safe. 7 hours earlier, the emergency department had been full. A construction worker waited for an X-ray. A little boy with a fever slept against his mother's shoulder while she apologized repeatedly for not having insurance. An elderly man had missed 2 doses of heart medication because the pharmacy price had increased. By 9:30, the coffee in my paper cup had gone cold, but I drank it anyway. Exhaustion was not an emergency. It was simply something nurses carried from one room to another. My supervisor, Linda Carver, found me near the discharge desk helping the little boy's mother apply for hospital assistance. "Hannah, your shift ended 20 minutes ago. She needs the form submitted before billing closes the case." Linda lowered her voice. "You cannot solve every problem that enters this building." I looked through the glass partition at the mother holding her child. "I am not solving it. I am showing her where to sign." Linda was not unkind. She was tired too. Everyone in that hospital was tired. Finish the form and go home before exhaustion causes you to make a mistake. I submitted the application, changed out of my hospital jacket, and checked my phone. 7% battery. My checking account held $43.18. Rent was due in 4 days. The transit application showed a red warning. Bus service had been suspended because of flooding near Tremont Avenue. A rideshare would have cost more than I could spare, so I pulled my hood over my hair and began walking. Maple Street was just under 2 miles from the hospital. On a clear night, the walk took 35 minutes. In that rain, it felt endless. Water filled the cracks in the sidewalk. Wind pushed cold drops beneath my collar. Storefronts closed as I passed, their lights disappearing behind metal gates. I remember thinking about the soup in my refrigerator. I remember wondering whether Mrs. Wilson had taken her evening medication. Then I heard something metallic strike the pavement inside the alley beside Patterson's Hardware. The sound was small, almost lost beneath the rain. I continued for 3 steps. Then I stopped. Every sensible part of me said to keep walking. Alleys near midnight were not places where good decisions waited. But I had spent too many years responding to sounds other people ignored. A cough behind a curtain. A monitor changing rhythm. A patient whispering that something felt wrong. I turned back. The alley was narrow, lined with wet brick and overflowing trash cans. A security light flickered above a rear door. At first, I saw only a dark coat near the wall. Then the man lifted his head. Even from 20 feet away, I could see the effort it cost him. "Sir, do you need help?" "No." His answer came too quickly. I moved closer. "You are sitting in an alley during a thunderstorm." That is an observation, not a question. That was my first glimpse of Vincent Moretti. Soaked, exhausted, and still proud enough to correct me. "Can you stand?" "Yes." He tried. He could not. I reached for my phone. His hand closed around my wrist, firm but controlled. "No hospital." I looked at his fingers and then at his face. "Let go." He released me immediately. That mattered. "You need medical attention. The hospital is being watched." "By whom?" His eyes shifted toward the entrance of the alley. Headlights moved across the wet pavement. Slow. Searching. "If you want to remain uninvolved, walk away now." I should have listened. Instead, I noticed how carefully he was breathing, how one hand remained pressed beneath his coat, and how the color had drained from his face. I did not know who he was. I only knew what could happen if I abandoned him in the cold. "There is a service entrance behind my building 1 block east." He studied me as if kindness were a language he had forgotten. "Why would you help me?" The headlights reached the mouth of the alley. A car door opened somewhere beyond the rain. I moved to his side and pulled his arm across my shoulders. Because you are still breathing, and I am not going to become the person who walks away. Vincent was heavier than he looked, not because he was unusually large, but because he refused to depend on me until his body left him no choice. We crossed the distance one uneven step at a time. Every passing headlight made him tense. Every sound of tires on wet pavement sharpened his attention. You need to slow down, I whispered. We need to disappear. Those are not the same thing. Tonight they are. The rear entrance of Maple Street Apartments had not locked properly in years. Usually, that made me angry. That night, it saved us time. I pushed the swollen wooden door with my shoulder and guided Vincent into the basement hallway. The building smelled like damp concrete, laundry detergent, and the old boiler our landlord kept promising to replace. A single bulb flickered above us. Stairs? Vincent asked. 3 flights. No elevator? It has been broken since February. It is October. Welcome to affordable housing. Under different circumstances, I might have laughed. He almost did. The expression appeared for a second and disappeared when a car moved slowly past the alley entrance. We waited until the headlights faded. His breathing had become too controlled, each breath measured as if discipline alone could keep him upright. I had seen patients do the same thing when they wanted to hide fear from their families. Vincent, look at me. He did. Can you make it upstairs? Yes. That was not a question about pride. His gaze held mine. I can make it. We climbed slowly. On the second-floor landing, Mrs. Wilson opened her door wearing the same green robe and carrying a bag of trash. Her eyes moved from my soaked scrubs to Vincent's expensive coat, then to the arm across my shoulders. Hannah? He became ill in the rain, I said. Vincent had enough sense not to correct me. Mrs. Wilson studied him with the suspicion of a woman who had lived on Maple Street for 40 years and trusted no man whose shoes were polished enough to reflect the hallway light. Does he have a name? Vincent, he answered. Vincent what? He paused. Just Vincent tonight. Mrs. Wilson did not like that answer. Neither did I. Do you need help? She asked me. I have it handled. That is what you always say immediately before you need help. She pointed the trash bag at Vincent. You caused trouble for her, and you will answer to me. Vincent, who I later learned had faced governors, executives, and men who built careers around intimidation, gave her a respectful nod. Understood. Inside my apartment, he immediately examined the windows, the fire escape, and the hallway leading to the bathroom. Sit down, I said. Close the blinds first. Sit down first. The windows. You are not in charge here. His eyes settled on me. The room felt smaller, not because he moved closer, but because all of his attention focused at once. I am usually in charge wherever I stand. I set my soaked bag on the floor. Then tonight will be educational. For a moment neither of us moved. Rain struck the window above the sink. The refrigerator hummed. Somewhere in the building, a baby cried. Then Vincent walked to the kitchen chair and sat without another argument. I closed the blinds, locked the door, and removed my medical kit from the cabinet. It was an old canvas bag that had belonged to my mother, faded blue with the initials L.B. stitched inside the flap. The zipper caught halfway, as it always did. Vincent watched my hands. You keep medical supplies at home? I am a nurse on Maple Street. People knock on my door before they call an ambulance. Why? Because an ambulance can cost more than their rent. He glanced toward the unpaid bills near the microwave and then at the stain above the sink. I saw him measuring my life without permission. Do not what? Look at my apartment as though it is a problem you can solve. I did not say anything. Men like you often do not need to. His expression sharpened. You do not know what kind of man I am. You were hiding in an alley, you refused a hospital, and someone was searching for you. I know enough to be careful. I placed a clean towel on the table and pointed toward his coat. Take it off. He remained still. That was not a suggestion. You give orders easily. Only when people make simple things difficult. He removed his coat and folded it over the chair. Beneath it, his shirt was wet from rain and darkened along his right side. I had worked in emergency medicine for 6 years. What mattered was his pulse, his breathing, his mental clarity, and how much cold exposure had affected him. I cleaned and covered the injury, then told him it required treatment from a physician as soon as we could move him safely. His pulse was fast but steady. He was cold, dehydrated, and losing strength, though he remained determined to disguise it. "Is it serious?" he asked. "You are awake, speaking clearly, and committed to annoying me. Those are encouraging signs." "That is not an answer. It is the answer you receive until I know more." I placed the supplies back in the bag. "You need a physician, proper equipment, and several hours of observation. You cannot use stubbornness as a medical plan." "I have a doctor." "Then call him." "Not yet." "Why?" Vincent looked toward the covered window. "Because I do not know who I can trust." The words carried more weight than anything else he had said. Outside, another car passed slowly. Pale lines of light appeared beneath the blinds. Vincent's hand closed around the table. "Is that them?" I asked. "I do not know." "Who are they?" "People who expected me to be somewhere else tonight." "That explains nothing." "It is all I can safely tell you." I folded my arms. "Then this is all I can tell you. You are remaining here until you can walk without pretending. You are drinking water. You are not touching my phone. If your condition changes, I am calling emergency services whether you approve or not. You assume I am staying. You nearly collapsed on my stairs." "I did not collapse." "Congratulations. You remained vertical through spite." I handed him water. Instead of drinking, he looked at my mother's medical bag. His eyes narrowed. "Where did you get that?" "It belonged to my mother." "What was her name?" The question came too quickly. "Laura Brooks." The glass stopped halfway to his mouth. Real surprise broke through his control. He looked at the faded initials and then at me. "Did she work at St. Matthew's Hospital?" 23 years ago, yes." Vincent set the glass down with deliberate care. Thunder moved across the city. "Hannah, your mother once saved my life." For several seconds, the only sound in my kitchen was rain tapping against the glass. "That is impossible. My mother never mentioned you. She would not have known my last name. You expect me to believe she saved you and forgot to tell me?" "I expect nothing from you." His answer was quiet. Too quiet. "Then explain it." Vincent leaned back carefully. The hard control returned to his face, but he was no longer watching me as a stranger. He was searching for a memory inside my features. "I was 13. My father brought me to a charity event at St. Matthew's. I hated crowds, speeches, and adults who asked children what they wanted to become. I left the ballroom and wandered into a service corridor. That sounds ordinary. It was, until an electrical failure started a fire in a maintenance room. The power failed in one wing, and smoke entered the lower corridor. I remembered my mother mentioning the St. Matthew's blackout. She had never described it as frightening. She had only said that backup lights failed and staff members moved patients by flashlight. I became separated from my father's security team," Vincent continued. "Your mother found me near a locked stairwell. She gave me that bag to carry because my hands would not stop shaking. She told me fear needed a job, so she made me count supplies while she guided patients toward a safe exit." That sounded exactly like my mother. She believed every emotion could be directed towards something useful. Grief became service. Anger became boundaries. Fear became attention. "What happened afterward?" "She brought me outside. My father's people found me. When they returned to thank her, she had already gone back to help someone else." His eyes lowered to the initials inside the flap. I remembered the bag. I remembered her name. Most of all, I remembered that she treated me like a frightened boy instead of someone important. I sat across from him and steadied the uneven chair with one foot. My mother died 9 years ago. His expression remained controlled, but his fingers tightened around the edge of the table. I am sorry. Do not say it as though you owe me something. I do not. I say it because she mattered. I wanted to challenge him. Instead, I heard my mother's voice telling me to judge people by what they did when no one was applauding. She had seen a child. Nothing more. Nothing less. She kept this bag until her last week at the hospital. After she died, I could not throw it away. I understand. That is a better answer than telling me what I should do. A trace of warmth entered his eyes. You disagree with everything I say. Only when you speak. His mouth almost curved. Then his phone vibrated inside his coat. The moment disappeared. He checked the screen and became completely still. What is it? I asked. He typed a short response and stood too quickly. His hand caught the back of the chair. Sit down. I need to leave. You can barely cross my kitchen. They know I survived. Who knows? The man who arranged tonight. Daniel Cross? Vincent's attention sharpened. You heard that name? You said it while you were losing consciousness. He looked toward the window. Do not repeat it. Authority returned to his voice, cold and polished. My patience ended. You are in my apartment because I carried you here. You do not get to order me into silence. He turned toward me. For 1/10 second, the room held two versions of him. The injured stranger who had trusted my hands and the powerful man who believed control was the same as safety. Hannah, the less you know, the safer you remain. People often say that when the truth would make them accountable. Recognition moved across his face. Your mother spoke like that. Then she was probably right. His phone vibrated again. He picked up his coat. I moved between him and the door. You still need a doctor. One is waiting in the building next door. A qualified doctor? Yes. And trustworthy? Vincent paused. Tonight those are different questions. I believe he is both. I understood then that. His world had narrowed to a list of people who might betray him. He had money, influence, and men who obeyed without hesitation, yet he could not make a call without wondering who might use it against him. My apartment was small. My bank account was nearly empty. But I knew who would answer if I knocked on the door across the hall. Vincent had everything except certainty. At least drink the water. To my surprise, he obeyed. Every drop. He placed the empty glass beside the bag and removed the black handkerchief from his coat. Keep this until Ethan comes for you. He will knock 3 times. The lion will confirm that he is acting under my direct order. You are giving me a very expensive identification card. It is more useful than it looks. 3 taps sounded against the fire escape window. Vincent lifted the blinds slightly. Ethan waited on the landing outside, with a second man carrying a medical case. The neighboring building shared the lower fire escape platform, allowing them to leave through its rear entrance without returning to the alley. That is my doctor, Vincent said. You are crossing a fire escape in your condition? One landing, slowly, with assistance. That is the first sensible plan you have had tonight. He pulled on his coat. At the window, he stopped. Lock this after me. Do not open your door unless you hear 3 knocks. You are assuming I follow instructions from mysterious men who leave through windows. Tonight I am asking. The difference was small. It mattered. And tomorrow? Vincent looked at my mother's bag one final time. Tomorrow, I begin repaying a debt that started 23 years ago. Then he stepped onto the fire escape, where Ethan and the physician supported him across the landing. I locked the window after them. By dawn, the handkerchief remained on my table. 6 black sport utility vehicles lined Maple Street, and Vincent Moretti stood outside my building after receiving proper medical treatment, dressed as though control itself could hide the night from the world. When he entered my apartment, he glanced at the old medical bag and said, You and everyone on this street are under my protection. I folded my arms. No. Ethan, waiting near the door, looked stunned. Vincent did not. This is not a negotiation. Then you came to the wrong apartment. I picked up an envelope that had been pushed beneath my door before sunrise. It carried the silver lion used by Moretti Urban Development. Inside was a notice announcing plans to purchase 3 buildings on Maple Street, including mine. I placed it on the table. Before you protect this street, you are going to explain why your company is trying to take it away from us. Vincent looked at the envelope as though it belonged to someone else. His eyes stopped on the signature near the bottom. Daniel Cross. Something inside his expression closed. When did this arrive? Before sunrise. Ethan stepped closer, but Vincent stopped him with one raised hand. This notice should not exist. That is comforting. I did not authorize these purchases. Your name is printed across the top. My company owns hundreds of properties. The people living in them usually care about the details. His eyes rose to mine. I expected anger. I saw calculation, followed by something close to shame. Ethan, contact our legal department. Freeze every acquisition connected to Maple Street, Hawthorne Avenue, and the Tremont Corridor. All pending purchases? Every one of them. Ethan stepped into the hallway to make the call. Vincent returned the notice to the table. The acquisitions are suspended. That does not answer my question. I am telling you I did not know. That is not better. His jaw tightened. No. It is not. The admission surprised me more than a defense would have. Powerful men rarely said they had failed. They preferred words such as oversight or miscommunication. Vincent chose neither. Come with me, I said. Where? Outside. No, you told me the street is protected. It is. Then protect me while I show you what your name has done. Ethan returned. The transactions are frozen pending written review. He glanced at me. Mr. Moretti should not remain outside longer than necessary. He remained in my kitchen for hours. That was different. Only because you did not know where he was. Vincent moved toward the door. We are walking. Ethan looked as though I had suggested taking the mayor through a storm drain. The perimeter is not fully secure. Secure it without turning the street into a prison. His eyes met mine. He had listened. Outside, the rain had weakened to a fine mist. Maple Street was waking. The bakery lights came on. Parents guided sleepy children toward the bus stop while pretending not to stare at the vehicles. 2 guards followed from the opposite sidewalk. Ask them to give us space, I said. Vincent glanced back, and the distance immediately doubled. We stopped outside Wilson Flowers and Gifts, though the final letter on the sign had been missing for 6 months. Mrs. Wilson was lifting the metal gate by hand because the motor no longer worked. Vincent reached for it. She blocked him with a folded newspaper. Your physician told you not to strain your side, Ethan said. Mrs. Wilson looked between us. So he really did become ill in the rain? Something like that, I answered. Ethan lifted the gate, while Vincent studied a red inspection notice taped beside the register. They have inspected me 4 times this year, Mrs. Wilson said. Each time they discover a new reason I should sell. Who requested the inspections? Vincent asked. Moretti Urban Development. She pointed the newspaper at his chest. That would be you. Not directly. A name on a letter feels direct when it threatens your home. He did not defend himself. We continued along the block. Mr. Harris showed us records of 2 rent increases in 11 months. The laundromat owner produced an offer worth barely half the property's market value and gave him 7 days to respond. Near the bus stop, Teresa explained that the neighborhood clinic had closed after an investment company connected to Vincent's corporation purchased the building. Now I take 2 buses to refill my medication. On a good day, that requires 90 minutes each way. Vincent listened without checking his phone or making promises. The farther we walked, the quieter he became. Maple Street was 6 blocks long. I knew which sidewalk flooded first, which porch steps became dangerous in winter, and which families shared groceries near the end of the month. Vincent knew the price of every parcel but almost nothing about the people standing on them. We reached the abandoned clinic at Maple and Tremont. Plywood covered the lower windows. A Moretti urban development sign stretched across the entrance, announcing future luxury residences. "This is where my mother worked after St. Matthew's," I said. Vincent looked at the building differently. "Laura worked here?" "For 15 years. She treated anyone who entered. No insurance questions. No judgment. Volunteers kept the clinic open after she died, but the building was sold. 6 months later, the doors closed." Vincent's gaze moved toward the silver lion on the development sign. "Daniel managed this acquisition. Daniel appears to manage many things you do not know about. He has worked with my family for 20 years. That is a long time to stop checking someone's work." His eyes hardened, but not at me. Ethan approached with his phone. "Legal found a pattern. Daniel created 3 subsidiary companies. They purchased 12 medical and community properties below market value. Maple Street was scheduled to be the next phase." "Where did the money go?" Vincent asked. "Some moved through the Moretti Foundation." Vincent turned toward him. "The Hospital Assistance Fund?" "Yes." I remembered the mother from my shift and the forms she had completed. "Your foundation supports the emergency assistance program at my hospital. It is supposed to. Last month, the hospital rejected 40% of eligible applicants because the fund was nearly empty." Vincent looked at the abandoned clinic. "Daniel has been diverting it." "Under your name," I said. A black sedan turned onto Maple Street. Ethan's posture changed. The security guards moved closer. Vincent stepped between me and the road without hesitation. The sedan passed the clinic and continued through the intersection. Ethan quietly read the license plate into his phone. "The first 4 characters matched the vehicle recorded near Patterson's Hardware last night," he said. Vincent turned to me. "You need to leave Maple Street temporarily." "No, someone is observing us." "Then identify them. Until I do, you should stay somewhere secure." I moved around him and faced the clinic. "You keep trying to remove me from the problem because that is easier than changing the system that created it. I am trying to keep you alive. Then stop treating my life as something you own." His expression became still. Behind us, a bus hissed to a stop. The bakery door opened. A dog barked from an upstairs window. Ordinary sounds. Fragile sounds. Vincent looked along Maple Street and then at the silver lion above the clinic. "Ethan, remove every vehicle except 2. Put the remaining security staff in plain clothes. No blocked entrances. No interference with residents." Ethan nodded. "And the clinic?" "Cancel the development and begin the legal process of transferring the building to a community trust." I did not thank him. "Not yet. That is a beginning. You make gratitude difficult. You confuse gratitude with surrender." The corner of his mouth moved. Then Ethan's phone rang. He answered, listened, and lost the remaining color in his face. "Daniel knows Miss Brooks has the notice." Vincent's expression turned cold. "How?" Ethan lowered the phone. "Because he had it delivered." The silence afterward felt louder than the rain. "Daniel wanted you to confront me," Vincent said. "Why?" "He expected me to remove you from the neighborhood. If I did, residents could accuse me of intimidation. If I ignored the notice, he could continue using my name to acquire the properties." Either choice protected him. Ethan received another message. Daniel scheduled a meeting with local property owners at noon. He plans to announce that development will continue under direct authorization from Mr. Moretti. I checked the time. It was almost 8:30. "Then we have 3.5 hours. Vincent looked at me. "You are not attending. We have discussed this problem. Daniel is using you. Then let him believe his plan is working." Ethan looked between us. "She has a strategic point." Vincent turned slowly toward him. Ethan cleared his throat but did not withdraw the statement. We returned to my apartment, where Mrs. Wilson had made coffee strong enough to wake the entire block. By 9, 6 property owners sat around my kitchen table and along the wall. Mr. Harris brought every rent notice he had received. Teresa carried records showing how many elderly residents had lost nearby medical care. The laundromat owner arrived with Daniel's purchase offers. Vincent stood near the window and listened. He asked dates, names, and amounts. His legal team joined by secure conference call and compared the residents' documents with company records. Daniel had created small corporations with respectable names, moved charitable funds through them, and used repeated inspections to pressure owners into selling below market value. Maple Street was not the first neighborhood. It was simply the next. How many? I asked. Ethan checked the preliminary report. At least 4 over 6 years. Mrs. Wilson placed her coffee cup on the table. And nobody noticed? Vincent answered before Ethan could. I did not notice. The room became still. There was no excuse in his voice. Only responsibility. Mrs. Wilson studied him. Then notice now. Further calls revealed that residents in 2 of the affected neighborhoods had already filed complaints with the State Attorney General's Consumer Protection Division. An investigator had been reviewing those complaints for months but lacked access to Moretti's internal records. Vincent authorized his independent counsel to release the relevant documents and preserve every financial file connected to Daniel. At 11:45, we walked to the community hall 2 blocks away. Daniel stood beneath fluorescent lights beside a model of the luxury complex he planned to build where our homes stood. He was older than Vincent, with silver at his temples and the relaxed confidence of a man accustomed to speaking with borrowed authority. When he saw me enter beside Vincent, his smile disappeared for 1 second. "Mr. Moretti," he said, "I was told you were recovering. You were told many things." Residents filled the folding chairs. Daniel spoke about investment, modernization, and opportunity. He used polished language that made displacement sound like progress. Then he announced that every acquisition carried Vincent's approval. Vincent did not raise his voice. "Open the folder in front of you." Daniel hesitated. Ethan placed copies of the internal financial records on the table. Vincent's independent attorney entered with the hospital compliance director and the state investigator who had been reviewing the neighborhood complaints. They were not there to arrest anyone. They were there to preserve evidence, record statements, and prevent Daniel from destroying documents while the investigation continued. Daniel looked at Vincent with disbelief. "You would damage your own organization for these people?" Vincent looked around the room at Mrs. Wilson, Teresa, and the families who had spent years believing they were invisible. Then he looked at me. "No. I am preventing my organization from damaging them any further." Vincent publicly revoked Daniel's authority and announced that every pending Maple Street purchase was suspended. Any property already transferred through Daniel's companies would undergo independent legal review. The clinic would be placed in a community trust after the required hearings and approvals. Daniel left with his attorney. He was not punished that afternoon. Real accountability was slower than that. Over the following weeks, investigators examined years of financial records. Several executives agreed to cooperate. The hospital recovered diverted funds. Months later, Daniel faced formal charges related to fraud, misuse of charitable money, and unlawful property practices. By then, Maple Street had begun building something more durable than revenge. We formed a board of residents, medical workers, and local business owners. Nothing changed overnight. There were hearings, inspections, public meetings, and stacks of documents. Vincent attended every meeting but never sat at the head of the table. When his company was legally responsible for repairs, it paid for them. When residents disagreed with his proposals, he listened. When he wanted to help, he asked first. The first time he brought coffee to a board meeting, he set a plain black cup in front of me. "I did not know how you take it," he said, "so I brought nothing in it." "You could have asked?" "I am asking now. 1 cream. No sugar." The following week, he remembered. That was how trust grew between us. Not through grand declarations. Through small acts repeated without applause. He returned the missing money to the Hospital Assistance Fund. He completed the legal transfer of the clinic to the community trust and signed away his authority over its operation. He did not ask me to forgive him. He did not ask me to leave Maple Street or move into his home. He helped without demanding ownership of the outcome. Over 6 months, I saw him speak gently to Teresa when she became confused by a legal document. I watched him remain silent while Mrs. Wilson criticized his company for 40 uninterrupted minutes. I saw him remove a security guard from the clinic entrance after a frightened child refused to walk past the man's dark coat. Vincent still carried power into every room, but he had begun learning when to set it down. Maple Street looked almost the same from a distance when spring arrived. The brick buildings remained old. Mrs. Wilson's shop sign was still missing its final letter because she claimed repairing it would ruin the neighborhood's character. But the streetlights worked. The sidewalks were safer. Teresa could walk 3 blocks for her medication instead of riding 2 buses for 90 minutes. The clinic doors were open beneath a new sign bearing my mother's name. The black vehicles were gone. On the first rainy night of spring, I finished a late shift at the clinic and climbed the stairs to my apartment. 3 soft knocks sounded at my door. I knew who stood outside before looking through the peephole. Vincent was alone in the hallway, holding my mother's blue medical bag. The canvas had been cleaned, the zipper repaired, and the faded initials preserved exactly as they were. I opened the door but did not step aside. "You repaired it?" I asked Mrs. Wilson for permission before taking it to a restoration shop. "You are learning." Slowly. He held out the bag. "Your mother saved a frightened boy because she believed fear needed a job. You saved a man who had given fear too much authority." I accepted it. "What job does your fear have now?" Vincent looked past me toward the small apartment where our story had begun, then returned his eyes to mine. "It reminds me to ask instead of command." Rain whispered against the hallway window. He waited. No guards. No orders. No assumption that the door would open simply because he stood outside it. "Would you like to come in?" I asked. "Yes. One condition." "Name it." "You do not solve anything in this apartment unless I ask." A quiet smile reached his face. "Agreed." I stepped back. Vincent crossed the threshold without claiming it, and that was how the most powerful man I had ever known finally entered my life. Not by taking my street. Not by surrounding my home. Not by turning gratitude into possession. He entered because he had learned that protection without respect was only another form of fear, and love could begin only after power learned to knock.